Hello and welcome to Gardening at 58 North. In this video I'd like to show you how to propagate polyanthus and primroses. So there's a great looking flower. The best time of year to do this for polyanthus and primroses is the middle of winter to early spring. The reason being is you want it to be mostly in a dormant phase, and it's a very early flowering plant, so you really want to be getting this done before they start flowering. The other reason is when they go into their winter dormancy, they don't go fully deciduous, but when they do lose their leaves, what tends to happen is they put all their energy into a small section of new leaves growing and into their roots, and that's the perfect time to separate. So the clump that I'm going to be using as a demonstration today is this one down here. It's got some lovely double flowers, really nice looking plant. So we'll be separating this one. It's grown into a nice clump now. It's at the perfect stage for separating and dotting around further in this little meadow here. So what you'll need for this is a spade or a trowel. You just want to start off by going around the outside of your patch of primroses. You just want to keep cutting out and try and get out as much root system as you can at the beginning. Basically, primroses store all their energy and nutrients mostly in their roots and their leaves. So you want to make sure that you get most of those roots out for the best success. So now that I've dug this out, it's time to start separating it. So I'm going to lift it from the soil. I'm going to tease out any other weeds or anything like that. This is a great time to separate any weeds from your clump. And you're just wanting to loosen up the soil a bit and try and separate the plants. Try and get rid of some of this soil here. So you can see here, some have already broken off. So we're just going to reduce this down. So we've just got the clump of primroses. Unfortunately, there's a crocus in here as well. I'm going to try and transplant that somewhere else. So just reduce this down so we can see what we're dealing with. There we go, we've got a clump of primroses. This has got a natural separation point, so I'm going to snap that in half there. And we've already got two sections. I can look here and you can see we've got a plant off to the side there and another plant coming off there. The two are connected, but what happens is as it ages, it produces these rhizomes, and you can snap those rhizomes off as long as you've got a growth point with some leaves. That should be fine. So I'm just going to tease this out, trying to keep the roots if I can. So we see we've got a nice new plant there. We've got this clump here. There's a couple of rosettes forming, but these are too tight together to really separate, so we'll keep that as a separate plant. We've got this one, which has got an offset coming off here. So again, we're going to try and just break that off, tease it apart. This is just old rhizome, but there's a chance that that can resprout and regrow, so we'll plant that as well. This section here, unfortunately, this is snapped off. There's a couple of small roots, so I'm going to still try planting that. There's a chance that might survive, but ideally, you do want a bit of the rhizome and the roots as well. And then this section, again, you can see they're quite close together, but there's a couple of crowns, so these should separate. So I'm just going to get the two of them. I'm just going to carefully tease them apart. And there you go. We've got now two new plants there as well. So I'm just going to replant one of these plants in the same position. So we've still got one growing in this part of the garden. So I'm just going to put it in at the same depth it was originally. Now, sometimes as primulas get older, what they can do is the rhizomes can become quite long. So this one, for example, this was mostly in the ground, but sometimes a rhizome can grow quite a bit above the ground. So what you want to do is bury it so that you bury the rhizome, and you just want the leaves coming out of the top there. So I'm just going to go ahead now and dot these around elsewhere in this nice little meadow area. And so we've got a lot more primulas on display. So that's these primulas now planted up in this part of the meadow. Originally we just had that one clump which looked like one small plant. We now have 6 plants in total, so you can quite rapidly expand your collection of primulas. This video is mainly about the common garden primulas, or the Primula vulgaris and the polyanthus primulas, but you can do similar things with most types of primulas. They just might not separate as quickly, or they take longer to divide. These type of primulas, unfortunately, they do grow quite quick and they do rapidly multiply. So every 2 or 3 years, you should be able to split them again. Basically, every summer, it'll create 1 or 2 new crowns. And if it's doing really well, after a couple of years, you might have another 5 plants that you can separate. And if you don't separate them, they'll just stay as a tight clump because they're competing with each other. They won't grow as quick. Whereas if you separate them like this, each one of these new clumps will be the same size as that one was in only about 3 years' time. So you can see how quickly you can rapidly spread them around your garden and have lots of lovely primroses. So only aftercare you need to do with these to keep them well watered. Ideally you'll be doing this in the middle of winter when it's not really frosty, when you've got a slightly milder day, and you want to make sure that they're well watered because they do dry out quite easily and they do like quite damp soil. So that's all for this video. I hope you guys have found it interesting. That's just a quick simple video to show you how to propagate your primulas. Very easy to divide. Just pop them back in the soil and they'll flower for years to come.